Hello everyone. All right, so I have gotten lots of people asking me about the back of LinkedIn, looking specifically at LinkedIn Recruiter. So for those of you that have watched a lot of our other videos, you have seen that we have done lots of little snippets of LinkedIn Recruiter to try and show you all of the different search filters that are used, and then try to show you how those relate back to your profile so you know what data to put where. And the feedback has been great on all of these videos, but I've had multiple people ask me, can we see the entire back of LinkedIn Recruiter? I want to see each and every one of the search filters that the recruiters and companies are getting to use when they are looking for me. So we're going to go ahead and do that today in a video. Now I want to warn you, there are a lot of search filters. So this is going to be a long video. If you prefer to look more targeted and just want to see this little filter here and this filter there, look through all of the other videos that are on our channel and take the time to look independently. Like if you want to see the open to new opportunities and where that pulls through to what filter, or the job title and how that pulls through the filter, you can look at just those little snippets. But if you are one of those really active job seekers, and I applaud you for that, and you want to see it soup to nuts, well, here we go. Now, before we start, please, if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, I really would appreciate it if you could take a moment and click that subscribe button. The way our videos are shown, we can get to more job seekers if we have more subscribers showing. The other things that really helps us for that is if you ring that bell for notifications and give us that thumbs up at the end of the video, and of course share it with other job seekers. We really are doing our best to try and help as many as we possibly can. Okay, let's walk into the back of LinkedIn Recruiter. What you see now on your screen is the main page for LinkedIn Recruiter. Now, what we're going to do in the time that we have together today is go through all of the different search filters that you're going to be able to see on LinkedIn Recruiter that tie directly to the data that you enter into your profile. I'm going to go through each and every one of them, and I'm going to try to give you information on where they attach to on your profile. But I'm not going to be able to easily switch back and forth continuously. So if there is one that you decide you really want more data on, then you may need to look at the additional video that goes really deep dive into that search filter. But let's start right up here at the top of the search filters, which is spotlights. So if I click on this plus on spotlights, these are the different areas or sections that I can look at in looking at all of the 660 million individuals that are on LinkedIn. So, for example, under spotlights, the first one that you're going to see is have company connections. Now, what have company connections means is anybody who is attached to the company that is doing the search on LinkedIn Recruiter. So in this case, when that's saying have company connections, they're talking about those individuals have connections with my company, CGL Recruiting. So if you're looking at a position and let's say it's Exxon that is doing the search on LinkedIn Recruiter, anybody that has any company connections with the people with LinkedIn is going to show up in this search for have company connections. So how do you influence that as a job seeker? If you are targeting certain companies, try to connect with people at that company. Okay, let's go down to the next one. The next one is past applicants. Now, LinkedIn Recruiter is an actual full functioning applicant tracking system. So what that means is once you've applied for a job that a company has posted, you will automatically show up in this past applicant search any other time one of those recruiters goes into the LinkedIn system. And the default is it shows not just for one, but for anybody that has that LinkedIn Recruiter license. The next one that you're going to see is those that are more likely to respond. So the more likely to respond is based, believe it or not, just on how active you are on LinkedIn. Do you accept invites? Do you make comments or hit the like button when you see things in your news feed? When people contact you, do you respond? If you notice, the number here is quite large. It's giving me over 41 million plus that are more likely to respond. But that's still a small number if you consider there's 660 million total profiles plus on LinkedIn. This next one, we do have a complete video walking you through, and that is the open to new opportunities setting. If you are a job seeker and do not have this turned on, you are really missing the boat. This is a very commonly used search filter that people are going to say, I want to only look at those that are actively looking for a job. Now, it doesn't mean that the person's necessarily employed or not. It's just saying whether or not they've said they're open to new opportunities. And there are a lot of nuances in this open to new opportunities setting, because when you do the open to new opportunities, you can set it open to recruiters only or to the whole population of LinkedIn. Watch our video on open to new opportunities to find out which is best for job seekers. There is a huge difference. The next one that we have is those that are engaged with the talent brand. And that is individuals that are following the company. So in this case, there's 5,200 people following my company and the posts and updates. So again, if you are targeting a company that you want to work with, this is an important spot for you to consider following that company. So if they use this search filter to pull down from 660 million to a smaller number, you're going to be one of the ones that comes up in the search. Remember, that is what is all about on LinkedIn, coming up in the search. You want to get past all these algorithms, get past all of the different searches that are done, so a person is actually looking at your profile and hopefully giving you a call for that position. Let's go down to the next section, which is job titles. Now, under job titles, when I click this plus symbol, you're going to see that it gives me a space to enter the job title. Now, in most of these search filters, it also lets me do what we call Boolean searches, which can be, I want somebody that has engineering and manager, or engineering and design, but not manufacturing. So there's different ways for me to play with what I put in that job title space. But one of the things I want to show you is what I can include. I can look at just people, the default is current or past, or I can look at people who are just currently in that job title, people who are past but not current, and people that are just past. And there's different ways as a recruiter that I may use those different ways of including to see what I want to see for the job titles. And I'll give you an example of this. Let's say I'm looking for an engineering manager and I can't find one when I'm looking at current. I may say, okay, well, let me look at somebody who was an engineer in the past but not current, and see if maybe I can pull up more people that moved into more of a management type role, even if that management role isn't specifically called engineering manager. Now, one thing that catches job seekers all the time is they fall out of searches because LinkedIn does not recognize them as having a current job title. And I will tell you, this little radial button of current most times is what recruiters are choosing when they're doing a job title search. If I am looking for an accountant, I don't want to choose current or past and type of accountant, because I'm going to get thousands of profiles of people that have moved past this spot. I don't want that. I want the individuals who are currently in that role. Okay, let's keep, and let me say on that too, we do have a video that explains this in detail. If you are not working, definitely look at that video, because people get stuck in that one all the time and fall out of searches. Let's go down to the next one, which is locations. Now for locations, again, you can include current, or those open to relocate, or those open to relocate only. And I can, decide however I want that search to be. Now, when I enter in a location, there are so many options. I can choose to enter a city like Houston, Texas. I can look at like Greater Houston, or I can even do like countries like United States, or I can even go so far as to do continents like Europe. There are lots of different options available to recruiters on location. It is very important though, when we're looking at not just current, but the ones that are current or open to relocate, where it's pulling the locations for the open to relocate is on your open to new opportunities setting. So when we choose the radio button current, it's going to choose the current location you have chosen on LinkedIn. If I do the current or open to relocate or the open to relocate only, then it's including that open to new opportunities locations, of which you can put 5 in. So because you only get 5, choose it broader. Instead of doing cities, you're going to want to do states. You don't want to do countries if you're an individual that looks in a very global market. Okay, let's go on to the next part. And that is going to be skills and assessments. Now, there is a section on your profile that allows you to add 50 skills. And this is where that information pulls from. Now, when you're entering the skills, it can be a little bit difficult sometimes because I may search for like SLA, service level agreement. Now, I'm lucky this time, see how it's there for both service level agreements and SLA. But sometimes the way that you word something can make a difference when you are searching. So another example of that is going to be oil and gas or oil and gas industry that you can see here. You can also see there's lots of other options, downstream, offshore. In general, the skills filter allows me to type a skill or a selected skill that are kind of common skills that you're going to see entered. It looks specifically at the skills section of the profiles, but it also does look at keywords that are included in other sections of your profile where skills are most likely to be. So that does give you a little bit of extra, hopefully help in getting one of the skills that I enter here as one of the skills that you have. Now, there is a new thing on LinkedIn. It's not available in all areas, where LinkedIn actually lets you take assessments in different skills. And we're going to show you that on a future video of how you can do that. If this is something that is available to you, I strongly recommend you start considering taking some of those assessments. And the reason for that is they're going to be used more and more by companies and recruiters to find you as a candidate. If they are looking for somebody who's outstanding in Excel, it's one thing to have it on your resume. It's another thing to show that you've passed a test on LinkedIn that says, yes, I see this skill and this person passed the LinkedIn test for it. So if you do not see this yet, the assessments on your profile, don't panic. It just means LinkedIn hasn't quite rolled this out to your area. Let's go on to the next section, which is companies. Now, when we look at companies, this is exactly what you think it would be. I can enter in all kinds of different companies, GE, Exxon, Baker Hughes, Apple, whatever I want to do. And this is pulling from where you are tied to this company on your profile. So it is important that you are linking appropriately to the different companies. And if you're not sure if you're doing that or not, we do have a video on that as well, which helps you link yourself appropriately to companies so you don't get missed. You will see it can be challenging sometimes because, like GE, there's more than one GE here. There's GE and GE Power. It also sometimes can be challenging if a company has different locations in different countries. I recommend, though, that you just make sure you're linked to one of them. Recruiters are pretty smart about trying to get to, if they want somebody from GE as an example, they're going to find a way to keep playing in this company space and doing searches to see what works. Now, there are options in here, current or past, current, past, not current, past. Again, I can look at somebody who only, is currently working at that company, or I could choose to say I only want to see somebody who previously worked in that company. Let's go on to the next one, which is going to be schools. Now, at schools, I'm actually just going to enter the name of the university. So in this case, let me take where I went to college. Whoops, and it didn't find it. Hold on. There it is. The University of Texas at Austin. So when you do get to that education section, it is important that you do enter in the company that you've worked for, not just for this search filter. I will tell you too, LinkedIn sends out lots of recommendations to connect based on the school that you've worked on. So it is important to link appropriately with your school as well. Now, going on to the next section, we can see year of graduation. Now, year of graduation is one of those filters that is not based on high school. It is based on the last education that you did enter into the system. So if you end date, that you went back and took a master's 10 years later after you graduated with your bachelor's, it is going to pick up that date from when you graduated with your master's. Now, the thing I will tell you about that is I don't know many people who use this years of graduation in searches for anything except when they're looking at interns. So if they're trying to get people who are going to be graduating in the next 2 years and they're wanting to send out, targeted messages saying, hey, we're going to be at this college campus, or are you interested in these roles? Then sometimes I will see a recruiter use these. For me, this is not a search that is valuable at all, because you may have graduated 4 years ago, you may have graduated 40 years ago. It doesn't matter to me. It's more about the education that overall that you got and the experience. So while this is here, I don't see that one a whole lot used. Let's talk next about industries. So industries is one of the interesting ones on LinkedIn. You actually have the opportunity to choose your industry on your profile. You get to select this, but LinkedIn only lets you select one. Now, previously, I had always heard that LinkedIn would pull the industry from your company, but actually even just this week, I got an update on this with a document from LinkedIn that shows that the industry filter is strictly based on the industry that the candidate selects in that industry section of their profile. Now, let's say that you are an accountant in the medical field. If the industry you pick is accounting and finance, then it doesn't know that you're in medical. So it's a little difficult since you only get to pick one. So I know that this is getting out a lot more with all the recruiters about this. So what we've been talking about is using industries more in your keywords than trying to use this filter, because it's just not the best. Let's talk about that keywords. This is my section that I can enter absolutely anything that I want to enter. Let's say I wanted to, enter offshore. I can do that, and then it's just going to show me candidates with offshore experience. I could enter anything, and even a Boolean search again, saying I want this and that. Let's go down now to employment type. So under employment type, I have the following options available to me: full-time, part-time, contract, and internship. Oh, and that's kind of funny because there is actually one called remote too that it's not showing me at the moment. Welcome to the joys of LinkedIn. But these you can actually select. The ones that are on your employment type are located on your profile. If you look at that open to new opportunities section, it allows you a spot to tell what type of positions you are interested in. So the more of those little radio buttons you check on that, the more you're going to show up in these searches. Let's go on to the next one, which is going to be network relationships. And network relationships, if I click that little plus sign, is just what it sounds like. These are people that are first level connections to me as the person doing the search, second level, those that are in groups with me, and this is third, and everyone else. Now, what do I as a recruiter use this for? If you connect with me and take that time and that effort, When I do a search, I always look first at anybody who's a first level connection to me. And then I will go look beyond that. But I feel like that is something as a recruiter and HR person that I always need to do, is if you took the time to connect with me, you're going to be at the top of my list when I'm in here looking. Spoken languages is another one that is used actually quite often by recruiters. If a company comes to a recruiter and says, I want to hire an engineer and I want this person to be fluent in German, you can bet they're going to want to use that fluency in German as a search filter. Now, if you speak any language whatsoever, you absolutely should put it on your profile. Not under the skills section, but there's a specific section for languages. And if you put it under there, that's where this shows up for this search filter. Now, you will notice there's also proficiency. And when you enter in your proficiency in a particular language on LinkedIn, it allows you all of the following choices. Whoops, let me bring that up again. Your proficiency can be any proficiency, could be elementary, limited working, professional working, full professional, or native or bilingual. So let's say you took Spanish for 2 years in high school and you have a elementary proficiency still in Spanish. It is something that you should still put in your profile. The default when a recruiter company does a search is any, which means you will still come up in the search as long as you have that language listed on there with your level of proficiency. Moving right along, let's look at fields of study. Now for fields of study, this is what you actually studied in school. You have the opportunity to enter in the name of the school, but fields of study lets you put the exact type of degree. So it's not talking bachelor's, master's, PhD. It's talking like marketing, computer science, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. You do want to be specific in here if you can. So I usually don't recommend you say just engineering, but that you say if your mechanical engineering is what you studied, put mechanical engineering as your field of study. Now, I've already shown you all of those search filters. When I tell you that LinkedIn has a lot, there is still all of these other search filters that are available to take a look at. So let's look at some of the other ones right now. So there is postal code, zip code. Whoops, let me go over a little bit so I'm not triggering that. There we go. Postal code, zip code. Now remember, we can look over here in locations and enter in a location that we want to search by, but it is very much driven by the locations that already exist underneath LinkedIn. Whereas if I am in or looking for a position that is in a very small town, that may be a time when I want to come over to this postal code or zip code and enter that information in, and then it will show me individuals within a certain area of that zip code or postal code. And I could look, as small as somebody that lives within 1 mile to as big as somebody that lives within 200 miles of the postal code or zip code that I do put in here. So this can be very, very powerful, especially if you're in one of those remote cities, or if you have a position that's in a very, very large city, like New York City, then it may be something that you want to look at people that are at one area within New York City sometimes. So just something else that we use to help find our different candidates. So this next one is profile languages. Now, profile languages is different than the language when you're looking at what your proficiency in it. The profile language filter lets me as a recruiter filter all of the different searches that I have and who comes up based on the language that their profile is in. So you're only allowed to have your profile in one language. Now there are some people who put multiple languages down into the experience and stuff, and may translate something, but overarching as a whole, you're only allowed one profile language. And so let's say that I am in, oh my goodness, I am some country that doesn't speak English, and I'm trying to look at profiles in that country, but I don't speak their local language. I can choose to look at people that are only in a language that I understand. So that's, up to that individual recruiter, and depending on how they speak, what they actually want to put in here. Okay, let's keep going. So I can look at people who have recently joined LinkedIn. And I've been on LinkedIn a long time, but there's some people that it's more new to and they're still kind of getting into it. And so they can go through and look at people, the recruiters, to say, oh, well, I think I've exhausted this search, go back and look 2 weeks later and only look at people that have joined like in the last 14 days. Now, these are amazing figures. Every time I go in here and look at this, in the last one day, 320,000 people joined LinkedIn. That's just absolutely crazy to me. If you look in the last 1 to 3 months, that number is over 17 million. Now, unfortunately, I think a lot of that is driven just by the amount of unemployment that's in the world today. But if you think anybody that tells you, oh, LinkedIn's kind of getting past its prime, oh my goodness, it is not, right? You can see just in these numbers how many people are joining on board every single day. Okay, let's go down. Let's stay in this candidate details section. Over here on the right, I can search by either first name or last name. Now, why would I use that as a recruiter? Let's say that I met somebody at a job fair and I have their resume, but I want to look through their LinkedIn profile too to see if they have recommendations on it or other information that's not included on their resume. I can go out here and try to find them. Now, I can just go to the main search bar and try to find them by typing in their name up here, but it's next to impossible to find somebody with this many profiles on here by just typing them up there. It's much easier when you have LinkedIn Recruiter available to type in their first name and their last name here. Now, you as a candidate, here's a trick for you, or it could be a trip. If you choose to put a different name on your resume, like for example, let's say you put Charles on your resume, but on your LinkedIn profile, you put Charlie as your first name, you are making it difficult for recruiters and companies to find you in this system. So as much as you possibly can, you do want to try and keep those names the same. And this is true as well when you have somebody who maybe is been through a divorce and has changed their last name and they have it reflected one way, one place, and another way another, or someone who chooses to take their spouse's name when they get married and the resume and the LinkedIn profile don't sync on the last name. So as much as you possibly can, make sure that you're keeping the profile and your resume the same when you're looking at this. Okay, let's move along and go down to education and experience. The filter that we have under education and experience, the primary one is years of experience. And if I click on this, I can see anywhere from 0 to 30 years experience. It does top out on 30. It doesn't let me look any further. But let's say that I'm looking for somebody who has at least 10 years of experience. I can choose to set this as a filter. Now, the years of experience filter is not great for HR people and recruiters, and I don't think it's used that often. And here is why. Not everybody puts all of their experience on their LinkedIn profile. I think they should because they get more advantage of the keywords, but if they don't, then it throws off this filter. And the other thing that this years of experience does not take into account, if you had, if you worked the first, 5 years of your life as you were going through school in a job delivering pizzas, I don't know, anything, it's still gonna count that as years of experience. So if I'm like, let's say hiring for an engineer that requires 10 years of experience, this doesn't mean that they have at least 10 years experience in that job. It just means overall they have at least 10 years of experience. So I don't find it at all a useful filter, and with my HR peers and recruiting peers, I don't find a lot that use this a lot either. Okay, let's keep going on. There is something that you can do, which is to choose years working in their current company. And again, I have that 0 to 30. Now, I will tell you there has always been some individuals that are very, very sensitive to what we would call job hoppers. And that's people who are switching jobs continuously. I think that the attitude towards that, I am seeing it changing, especially because there has been such huge growth and expansion in economies and markets that they're seeing it not as big of a deal if you're changing jobs a little bit more often. But that's why you would use this years of experience, I'm sorry, not years of experience, the years in the current company. There is also one the exact same way for years in current position if you do want to use it as a search filter. Again, it's not something I choose to use, but I do know that there are some recruiters who will choose to use this because they don't want to be pursuing people who just changed jobs a month ago. Let's look at this next section, which is military veterans. If you have a U.S. military background, LinkedIn does give you the opportunity to put that on your profile, and I highly recommend you do. There are lots of companies that are very, very committed to hiring vets, and that is valuable experience that you should have on your profile, and this is how recruiters are going to find you if you do put that on there. Let's go over now to fields of study, which we're going to look first at degrees. So this is exactly, what you would think when before we were talking about more of the specialty in the degree, and now we're talking, let me type in there. And now we're talking more about, is it a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor's of Science? Is it a master's degree? Is it an MBA? So there's, a ton of different options in here. When you do enter in your education on your profile, make sure you include what type of degree it is. Moving on to the next section we're going to take a look at is seniority. And this is looking at the level of position that the person has. Now, this is not one of my favorite search filters either. And the reason for that is because it's determined, and this is an exact quote from LinkedIn actually, the seniority filter is determined by the position level, a member holds at their current company. For example, entry, senior, owner, director, or volunteer. Seniority categories are derived from job titles. So, I don't know many people that use this a lot because it's so much easier to search for that under the job titles. But it is something that LinkedIn does give you the opportunity to use. Why I don't think it's also valuable is job titles are so company specific. And a lot of times they don't include anything like this, like where does a specialist fall? Where does a senior manager fall versus, a supervisor? It's just not the best filter because when I have tried to go in there and use this in the past, it's just all over the place. But that's my opinion on that one. Okay, let's go down to the next section, which is going to be company. So you can, of course, look at their current employers to see who is currently that they have listed. And remember, this is why it is important to make sure that you have connected appropriately with those different companies. The next one is past companies. It's the same thing as long as you're linked to those companies. This is looking at the ones that you're not holding as a current role. This next one, company types, and there's several options that I have to choose here, whether privately held, public company, educational, nonprofit, government agency, partnership, self-owned, self-employed, or a college page. Now, how do you influence this? Where do you get to put this on your profile? Well, this actually is pulled from the current employers listed in the experience section of your profile. So if you are linked appropriately to the companies on your profile, that is where this data is going to pull from. And that is similar when you come over here to company sizes. Company sizes, again, looks at the employers listed in the experience section of a member's profile. So make sure you're linking to those companies. If you're not sure if you're linked to your company appropriately, we have a video that covers just that specifically, and it also shows you for this and this where that pulls from on the company site. So the next one we have is company followers. And so if I am, for my company CGL, and I put this in here, it's going to filter people that are following my company on LinkedIn. The next one you're going to see is job functions, which they also term as areas of expertise. Now, this job functions filter is based on what the members list as their job titles. So LinkedIn has some behind the scene algorithm that they utilize that categorizes the job titles as much as they can into standard job functions. And then that job function that comes up is based on all present positions. So if you have a job of a designer and an owner, you might come up in more than one job function filter. So it is important when you enter in your job titles on your profile that you are explicit. Don't just put engineer. You want to put more data, because if they want to come in here and look at your job function, it can help you if you had more data in that job title field. Okay, so we're almost through all of these search filters. So let's talk about recruiting and candidate activity. These are ones that are specifically used by recruiters, and most of the data that's entered here comes from us. So recruiting activity, these are candidates that somehow we have touched in the past, whether with messages, notes we've put on their profile, tags we may have put on their profile, like, we could put a tag out there, willing to relocate globally, or, has a specialty skill. When I am working in LinkedIn Recruiter, it actually lets me create projects. So if I have a project for a mechanical engineer, I can then save anybody that I think matches that project out there and tag them with it. So I can pull up each of those projects. I can look at reviews. If I have sent the profile to a hiring manager through the system, they have an opportunity to come back and review that, and then it captures how their review was on that person if they're using the whole LinkedIn Recruiter system. And then, of course, I can look at people with resumes. Now, we do have a video talking about attaching resumes to your profile, and I do recommend you do that. This also has resumes that for people that applied for jobs. Once you do that on LinkedIn for a company and you've attached your resume, it's then attached from there on with your profile for that company. But don't worry, because if later on, 3 years later, you apply for a new job with them, it attaches the new resume or the new attachment, so you're not stuck just once. And then I can also look at people within, like certain date ranges. And I can also choose to look at individuals without these things. So if I'm trying to look for somebody that I've never touched before, I can say, okay, show me people that I have never sent a message to, or show me people that are not in one of my projects, or ones that I haven't reviewed yet or a hiring manager hasn't reviewed. So there's lots of ways that we HR recruiters companies use these different activity filters when we're looking at you as a candidate. So the next thing is groups. And if you are not in groups on LinkedIn, I do recommend you join groups. Groups are a great way to find lots of different information, and recruiters can use them to search by. Now, this is very, very important. For a lot of people, their job titles don't really match me exactly what I'm searching for. Or they may have a skill that they have forgotten to put on their profile that they don't come up in my keyword searches. But let's say they're an engineer that's worked with valves. I can choose to go out and say, I want to find anybody that is part of maybe the Valve World group or the Valve Actuation group. And I know that valves are somehow of interest to these people, and then I can look through all of those individuals in that valve group. It is incredibly important you do join groups for this search filter. It is one that I actually use quite often. Another one is candidate sources. This is not something that you can do. This is something that's based on how we enter candidates in the system, so don't have to really worry about that. I can choose to say, look, I only want to see new people that I haven't looked at before. I feel like I've looked at all the candidates that have already applied for this role. Show me just ones that haven't been viewed previously. And then over here, I do want to talk about tags. So there is, excuse me, the opportunity for us to tag different people with different things. And it may be, you know, all kinds of stuff. Like I gave the example of somebody who's willing to relocate anywhere in the world, or somebody who has some really specialty skill that I want to make sure I'm tagging them, or somebody that I think is just an outstanding candidate and we want to help this person find a place because we think they're just amazing and that they're going to be very valuable to companies. You can also, as recruiters though, enter tags here of things like do not represent this person or do not call this individual again. Now, it is very rare that my firm has tagged anybody, but I do have some that are tagged. And if you are somebody that goes into a recruiting situation and is inappropriate with the recruiter, in talking personal stuff that's not appropriate or sending pictures that aren't appropriate, anything like that, you can bet we're going to tag you. Or if there is somebody who is incredibly aggressively rude, sometimes too they will get tagged of saying do not represent this person. So do make sure, when you're having these conversations with recruiters that, you are being polite. They're just trying to get through their day just like you're trying to get through your day. And they are trying to place you somewhere. Remember, most recruiters get paid based on the placements they do. So it is in their best interest for you to land in a great job that you're happy with and that you're going to want to stay in. So hopefully you don't ever get tagged negatively, but I did want to at least show you that does exist. Okay, let's move on to the next, which is projects. I told you a little bit about, we have different projects that we've created out there. So, if I wanted to say, okay, what engineering ones did I do? I can go out and take a look at those. And then the last thing is notes. And that's just a section where I can put, all kinds of notes. If you have given me other information as I've spoken with you, I do as a recruiter try to capture that information so that when I pull you up again, if you've already told me that your location shows this, but you're looking at moving here in 3 months, or that you really don't want to be contacted unless the position pays over a certain dollar figure, I may put some of those notes in, and so I can filter people by those notes as I choose to do. So that is all of the search filters that are available in LinkedIn Recruiter. Now, I will tell you that most of the systems have similar search filters. There's not many of them that I've been on Career Builder, Monster, RigZone, where the search filters are any different than these. LinkedIn does have more unique ones, I think, just because there's so many people that are on LinkedIn that are not only active candidates, but passive candidates. And that's why you do definitely have some of these ones, like the spotlight ones that are open to new opportunities. But I always tell people more data is more on LinkedIn. It's not a resume. If you see this number up here, and I said 660 million earlier as I was recording this, and now as I look at this, we're up to 690 million profiles on LinkedIn. That's just an incredible amount. And you saw how fast that's going. Well, wouldn't you rather know that if you add more data to your profile, I can click one button and I go from 690 million down to 36 million. Now, 36 million is still a lot, I get it, but that's quite the reduction. Let me show you live actually where you can see how much it reduces, but I am going to try and zoom in a little bit to hide some of the information. So hold on with me for 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna type in a position for an engineer and a keyword and hit enter. And you see right here, there's this 28 million plus results. Now again, remember I have this spotlight feature. Look what happens when I come in and hit the open to new opportunities. It comes down to, wait for it, 5.4 million results. Now let's go further. Let's say that I only want to see people that are currently in Houston, Texas. Now I have 14,000 results. Let's do it again. Let's say I want to look at people who have the skill, whoops, bear with me guys, I'm working here live, of SolidWorks. How many do I have now? 1,500 results. So you see how I'm going to keep entering information and data in here until I get to the point where I feel like I'm looking at a group of individuals that is small enough for me to start looking at their individual profiles. Let me add oil and energy as the industry, and let me look at people who are willing to work, let me say full-time, 655, and let's say I want somebody who speaks French. Now you can see I am down to 34 results. That is a much, much smaller number. You can bet I'm gonna look at all 34 of those profiles. That is how these searches are so powerful with all of these search filters. So again, the more data you add to your LinkedIn profile, the better chance you have of coming up in those search results. Okay, I told you it was a lot of search filters. If you made it all the way through to the end, I'm very glad. Now, here's what I would say. I know I went a little quick over some of them, but I was trying to make this video less than an hour long. So if you see one of the search filters that you have additional questions on, leave me a comment below. I will do my best to answer each and every one. Now, I'd love to get your help. If you would, if you haven't yet, please hit that thumbs up if you felt like this video was useful to you. And please share it with another job seeker you know who might benefit by getting a chance to see LinkedIn Recruiter behind the scenes. Thanks again.